This is an eye makeup eyeshadow tutorial for beginners. It's going to be broken down so it's super easy to understand. Great for beginners, but also great for anyone who is already really good at makeup but wants to know exactly how to create this look. Always more that you can learn, so make sure you do watch this because I think you're going to like this look. Now we're going to be using this palette, which is the new Makeup by Mario Moonlight palette, and it's super sparkly, so I'm really excited to use this today. I'm going to be talking through brushes, the angle that you need to hold it, the pressure, what part of the brush you need to use. Everything is going to be discussed today, so let's get started. Now first off, I don't have any eye makeup on at all. All I've done is apply a little bit of concealer, set it with a little bit of powder, and that's it. So you can prep your eyes however you want. I personally prefer prepping mine in this way. I do it day in, day out, and it works great for me. So we're going to be creating a kind of like mix of shades here, and I am going to be using more of the kind of like grey champagne tones in here. I really want that sparkle to come through, and I do want to see if I can add a little bit of that navy blue because I am pretty obsessed with this shade in here. So let's get started. First off, I want to shape my eyes. So what that means is I want to create an almost like an outline so that I know the kind of shape that I'm going for, because if I just kind of go all in and don't really think about what it is that I want to do, especially when you're a beginner or you're unsure as to how to use this kind of palette and brushes, then I would always suggest understanding what kind of shape you're at least going for. You can always play around with the colors and kind of mix them up a little bit later, but the shape is what we really want to focus on. Kind of like, for example, do we want to go more for a lifted look? Do we want it to go so far out? Are we going a bit more into the crease area? Think about all the do's and don'ts. So I know that I don't want to go too heavy into the crease area, like too above the crease area. So I know that I want to keep everything a little bit smaller, because an important part that you need to remember is the minute you start blending, everything is going to appear bigger. So always make sure your application is a lot smaller than what you want it to end up looking, because I can guarantee the minute you start blending, everything spreads and it gets a lot bigger. So the first brush that I'm going to use here is the BEAUTY N11 brush, and this is a angled brush, which is quite a kind of long one, I would say. And again, it's flat because it's angled at the, it's flat on the side, and then at the tip, the very end of the brush is quite nice and smooth and not too sparse. So it's quite a condensed brush. Now I'm going to be using this part here, so I'm not using the sides of it. I'm going to dip into number 9, which is this really nice, rich, kind of medium rich brown. Now I'm going to press into it, and immediately I'm going to press onto a tissue, and you'll see a whole load come off. You really want to make sure you do that with every part of the application in this. It's going to make it so much easier for you. Now, when it comes to holding the brush, you want to make sure you're holding it like this so that you're using the very tip of the brush, right? So you don't want to hold it like that. Another thing is you need to pay attention to the shape of the brush. It's angled, right? And what that means is that there's one part of it which is a lot higher than the other, so it's kind of like a slope. Now, when you're working on the eye, you want to make sure that the highest point is pointing towards the right side. What that means is when I'm working on this inner part here, I'm going to make sure that the highest point is facing that way, right? So I'm making sure it's facing that way, so that I'm really kind of, it's gliding onto the shape of the eye really well. The minute I get past the middle and I'm working on this side of it, I'm gonna flip it over so that the highest point is pointing that way, right? And then I'm gonna apply it that way. The reason for that is because it's angled in such a way that you'll find it much easier to kind of move along and glide along the shape of the eye. So now that we've got the product on there, first thing we want to do is, again, pointing inwards here, I'm gonna just press very close to the lash line. Now I want to make sure it's thinner here, and then it slowly goes a bit thicker. Anytime you need to go back in the product, always make sure that you do pat onto a tissue. So again, pressing. This is a very soft finish that we're going to get here. Now I'm going on this side here, so I am going to flip the brush over, and I'm going to go a little bit thicker. I'm just pressing, I'm not gliding, by the way. There you go. We've got this really nice kind of soft eyeliner look, which to be honest, you could actually leave like that if you wanted to. Now, I'm not going to do any kind of flick at the moment. I'm going to show you why. We're going to go in with another brush. There's not going to be anything on this brush. This is the BK Beauty 207 brush. And now I'm going to use the tip of it, and I'm just going to go back and forth to just almost like blur the edges of what we've just done. And this is going to really soften it. Now, when we get to the end here, I'm going to flick upwards and outwards. See how that automatically has dragged whatever product was already there and given us that flick. Had we had actually created a flick and applied it with that other product, the other brush, this would have gone way far out. So this is what I mean. You need to always stay small, trust the process. You can always make things look bigger, but it's harder to make things look smaller. We're gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the other eye. So remember, the highest point is pointing towards the nose at this point. We're gonna get to the middle. We're gonna flip the brush over. And we're gonna make this a bit thicker. I've only gone to the end of the lash line. I'm not going outside the lash line, as in not that way. There you go. Now we're going to go into that other brush, no product on here. Go back and forth over the line you've just created. Just to smudge it all. Don't go up or in circular movements. Now we're just going to take this, drag this upwards and outwards. And there you go. So now that we've got that shape, we know what our general shape is going to be for this look when it comes to the lash line. So we've defined that area a little. Now we're going to work into the crease area, and this is where I'm going to use the Rephr 15 brush. I'm going to dip into shade 5, which is this kind of taupe shade. Dip onto a tissue to take the excess off. Now I'm going to go into the crease. You want to kind of, with your brows, lift your brows a little bit so you're stretching your lid a little bit, because if you stretch it like that, it's going to be a lot easier for this to glide back and forth without skipping any parts of the skin. Raise a little bit, and we're going to go into the crease, but we're not going above it at all. So we're going to do small side to side movements to really kind of like get into that crease area. Go all the way in, but not all the way into the inner corner. You're just kind of leaving a little bit of a gap there. You want the smallest amount here, because all this is doing is just kind of defining the crease area without it looking like there's a whole load of product there. There you go. See how we've got a little bit more definition there, but it's such a subtle shade that it's not kind of in your face. Same thing on the other side, and we're using the tip of this brush. We're holding it upright again. Remember how I said always figure out like how you need to hold the brush in order to use the right part of the brush. See, it's very soft. I don't feel like it's overly dark, so that's a good thing. Now, what we want to do next is we want to add a bit more depth into the areas that we've shaped. We've got the overall shape now. I know that I don't want it to be much bigger than that, so this is where we're going to apply other colors to almost give like a gradient effect to what we've already applied, because this is our kind of base layer. We're going to get the BEAUTY N12 brush. I'm going to dip into 11, which is that navy shade that I've been dying to use. And I'm going to dip onto a tissue. I'm using the tip of this brush. This is a kind of like smudge brush. What we're going to do here is go into the lash line. We're not touching the wing at all. We're going as close as we can to the lash line and just kind of pressing. We're not going back and forth. We're just pressing. What this is doing is giving us this really nice kind of flash of blue and definition along the lash line. Now I'm not taking it all the way in. I've gone from the end of the lash line almost to like just past the middle, so about 3/4 of the way. So this is going to help to just make the eye look a bit more lifted, but also a little bit bigger as well. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. You're using the tip of the brush, so you're holding it upright, remember? Go into the lashes, just focus on touching the root of the lash and press. Remember to dip onto a tissue before you go onto the skin. Okay, I'm happy with what I've got there, but I still need to adjust it a little bit. We're gonna go to the BEAUTY 207 brush. We're gonna make sure there's nothing on this, and we're gonna do what we did earlier, which is go back and forth to really kind of smudge this a little bit. And this is where you're gonna go into the inner corner because you're spreading whatever's already there. So it doesn't look so harsh on the inner corner, but you've got that nice bulk amount of kind of depth along the outside area. So that's good, we've smudged it. I'm happy with that. Now whatever's here, I'm gonna drag upwards and outwards again, so that it doesn't look so disconnected from the wing that we'd already put there. Now this is where we're going to go into the sparkly shade, and I'm really excited about this part because it's nice and sparkly. So we're going to use shade 6, which is this really nice champagne sparkle. We're going to use the finger for this, so we're going to just swirl around into that. This is where you want to be very careful with where you apply this. Now we're going to press this on the center of the lid, but we don't want to touch where we've applied all this dark shade on the lash line. So you want to make sure you really just focus on pressing onto the lid. It doesn't matter if you go into the crease for this, by the way. Right, we've pressed enough there, but this is where you want to get a brush. I'm going to go back into that Rephr 15 brush. There's nothing on here. And I'm just going to make sure that I spread that sparkle up into the crease. I don't mind the sparkle going into the crease because it's not definition, it's just sparkle, and it's going to leave this really nice kind of like finish over the eyes, and I absolutely love this. You can keep layering it up if you want, and then go in with your brush to spread it. There you go. We're going to do the same thing on the other eye. Now, I don't actually like a lot of product on my lower lash line, especially dark shades, because I just feel like they just make everything. It just somehow makes my dark circles look a little bit kind of darker. So I like to open up the area a little bit more. And a nice little trick that I have for you is using that same shimmer shade, but on specific parts of the lower lash line. Don't just drag it over the entire lower lash line. Just because you have the lower lash line doesn't mean you have to always apply makeup everywhere there. You can leave parts out and just apply it to specific areas so that it really helps to give that kind of illusion of slightly more open eyes without looking like you have too much there. I'm going to use my Rephr 02 brush. You want to use a small brush which is quite condensed. Now we're going to dip into that number 6 shade, so that nice shimmer shade. We're going to coat the tip of the brush, and this is where we're just going to touch the lower lash line, but right at the inner corner, but the lower part of the lash line. Just right here, and that helps to just open up the eye without having to apply it everywhere. We're going to do the same thing here. Now I do want to add a little bit more blue into this, so I'm going to use that navy shade that we first used. I'm going to use my BK Beauty 207 brush, and we're going to dip into that, dip onto a tissue. This is where we're actually going to create a bit more kind of depth around this area. So I am going to use the tip of it and just kind of like thicken that corner part of my lid, just where I've already applied that dark shade. So right here, can you see here in the original one, we've got a dip there before it goes into the flick. I've basically filled in the dip. So this is where you can change the way a look looks so that it just looks a bit more kind of like sweeping upward and it's just fading out. Very small movements, don't drag anywhere. You really just want to kind of focus on pressing to begin with. Now we're gonna, in very small movements, make sure there's nothing on this brush. We're gonna just lightly flick up, but we're just skimming over this skin. See how that's more of a kind of smoky look? You obviously can leave it like this if you want to. It's more of a kind of like, it's better for people who maybe are not used to wearing a lot more makeup. If you really want that nice kind of like smoked out look, this is the way to do it. So we're gonna go back into that color, dip onto a tissue. We're focusing on pressing right where that dip is. So before the end of the wing, right on the end of the lash line really. Press it on and then lightly flick up, but make sure you're skimming you're not pressing too hard. There you go. So now we are going to just curl the lashes so that we can apply some mascara. This is my YSL Lash Clash. So I always use a different mascara on my lower lashes because I feel like a lot of the mascara ones are a little bit too chunky for my lower lashes. And I like the Charlotte Tilbury Push Up Lashes mascara, the Pillow Talk mascara, because I just feel like it gives you a light finish to the lower lashes. And that is my finished look. If there's any particular looks that you want to see, let me know. Hopefully you like this whole look. I love it because I haven't worn like a smoky eye for so long, and I just like how this has a bit of navy in there, so it's not even black. I love the sparkle because it's not in your face. It's not like glittery. It's just a really subtle sparkle, which is really nice. It's only when you come up close up that you're like, oh, she's got a little bit of sparkle on, but from far away, it's just this subtle kind of like Moonlight kind of sparkle. So don't forget, I do have an online publication called The Beauty Breakfast Club, which is basically primarily about beauty, but it's basically a magazine. So it has everything in there, like articles about kind of product reviews, my opinion on best products, tested, like tried and tested stuff, the best 3 mascaras, all sorts. So a lot that you're gonna get there. There are 2 versions of subscription. One is free, which gives you access to most of the site. The other is paid, which is the equivalent of paying for 1 coffee a month. So that will really help me out because everything helps, because I can reinvest it back into my business, be able to bring you better videos, better content on the publication as well. And that will give you access to the entire site, including a chat room that me and you can have. So head over and show your support there. I would really appreciate it. All the products are listed in the description with all the discounts, so don't forget to head on over there. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button so that you never miss any of my future videos. Until the next video, take care and I'll see you soon.